Welcome to this new how-to. In this how-to we're gonna look at the autopilot of this airplane, which is currently located at Cancun International Airport. For those who saw some previous how-tos might recognize this airplane. This is the Beechcraft King Air 350 I from India. So let's go inside the airplane and let's make sure that we're starting the airplane first. So there are two options, right? There you can use the options by following the checklist, or you can do everything manually. So let me show the checklist. So the checklist starts with before the engine, so you can go to it, right? So make sure that the parking brake is set. Well, that's the case. Power levers set to idle. Propeller speed needs to be set to max. So let's do that. Max RPM. Fuel cutoff is set to fuel cutoff. And then the next thing is switch on the battery.
Engaging autopilot.
That's the case. So next step is we're gonna start the engine. So we need to switch on the ignition for the right engine. We need to validate the right condition. So let's look at the right engine, and you can see that the values are changing here, right? So values are changing here, so it's starting the rotor. And then you can monitor it, right? So you can monitor it here. So that's fine. Oil pressure looks okay. Then once it was at 50%, we're gonna do the next step. So you can see that it's running. So let's go to the next step. Oil pressure was checked. Switch it to high idle. Let's check again. What happens? It's running a little bit faster, as you can see. So I'm gonna go to the right generator, switch it on. And now we've done that, we're gonna repeat the process for the left engine. So we're gonna switch this one to left. Oh, sorry, to left to 1. So then we're gonna wait till the values are building up here. So that's fine. It's at 12. So we're gonna move this one also to full. We're gonna switch on the generator. So we're gonna push this button. And then we're gonna keep a look at the monitors here to make sure that the values are okay. Yeah, so the values are okay. So once you have done that, sorry for this, don't want to make you seasick. So I'm gonna switch off the ignitions because that's not needed anymore. And then we can go with the next step. So we're gonna switch on the avionics master power switch, and we're gonna switch on all the lights. So the landing lights, taxi, ice, lights on the wings, strobes, tail, and we're gonna switch on the beacon, and switch on the recognition light. And now we've done that, we're going to the outside. You can see that the engines have started. Great. Gonna press the buttons here because we don't want to have the noise, and we're gonna ask for clearance to fly out, because before starting this flight, I set up a flight which travels from this parking spot back to the same airport, and you will see the reason why I did that. So first ask for IFR clearance.
Cancun clearance delivery Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo ready to copy IFR clearance to Cancun. Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo is cleared to Cancun Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 12 right climb and maintain 7,000 feet. Departure frequency is 124.2 squawk 3076.
We're gonna acknowledge it.
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo readback is correct. Contact ground on 121.7 when ready to taxi.
So now we acknowledged it. You can see several things have changed. So if we zoom into this screen, you can see that we go a little bit up, that the score code, so the transponder code, has been automatically set here. So the only thing you need to do is you need to switch to on, which makes sure that the traffic control can see you and can recognize your airplane. There is also sometimes a case where you need to adjust the transponder code. For example, if you abuse the rules and you are kicked out of the IFR, you need to request permission again to do the same flight. Then it will, in most cases, give you a different transponder code. Right. So by default, if you're using the default options, it's set automatically. So let me check here. Let's say, not sure. Probably I hit the wrong button to, I would say, pull up the gears, which is not the case. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to ask for permission to taxi.
Crown Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo with India ready to taxi IFR.
Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo taxi to and hold short of runway 12 right using taxiway Alpha. Contact tower on 118.6 when ready.
We're gonna acknowledge it.
Taxi to and hold short runway 12 right by taxiway Alpha Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
So and here you already see the challenge, right? We could run or drive forward, but we're I would say, hitting the nice guy which is standing in front of the airplane. So we're gonna ask for pushback. So option 4, option 1.
Crown Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo requesting pushback.
And now he comes into action.
X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo pushback request accepted.
Don't forget to remove the parking brake. And while we're doing that, we can configure the altitude which was instructed, right? So the altitude was 7,000 feet. And that's something we can configure in our autopilot, and this is the first button we're going to discuss, right? So if we would turn this button, you will see that values will change. So let me do that. And the values which are changing are the values here, right? So you can see it's increased, so it's currently at 1,600 feet. So I'm going to change it.
Crown Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo requesting pushback. Tell you to steer the aircraft to the right.
Here you can see now it's set to 7,000.
Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo, your request has been transmitted to the operator.
So now we're gonna stop.
Crown Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo requesting the end of pushback.
Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo request to end pushback received.
So that's done. Alright, so we can go back to clearance. The other option we're going to use is the flight director, and the flight director will make sure that you're making, I would say, a stable climb of a certain percentage, not too, I would say, not too high, so you're not coming into a stall. So let's switch on also that option, and for now let's don't touch the other buttons yet. So we're gonna increase throttling. And we're gonna follow the blue marks on the airport, which will guide us to the runway. So for those who never flown this aircraft, you can't fly an airport. On the left side you can see the speed. I'll show it once we're at the straight part. Reduce speed a bit. So you can see on this side, on the left side, you can see the speed. And the speed is in this case displayed with some red and white stripes, which means it's still trying to tell you something about, hey, this is not the minimum speed. So we're, I would say, below the minimum speed. That causes some issues in most cases. For example, when you try to say depart from the airport, it will result in weird scenarios where you can't take off, or when you're in the air you will lose altitude. On the right side you can see the altitude meter, right? This one, it's currently set to 0. Let's put it on parking brake for now. And you can see that by switching on the flight director, you can see two things are changing. So the level is set, which makes sure that we're doing the climb, and the pit is set. And the pit is set because we want to climb to the altitude of 7,000 feet. And you can see that, let's switch off again, you can see that there's a nice pink arrow here being displayed. So let's continue with our next step and ask permission for clearance
Tower Beechcraft
takeoff.
Alpha Sierra, X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo ready to go runway 12 right IFR to Cancun.
Beechcraft Alpha Sierra, X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo cleared for takeoff runway 12 right.
So we're gonna acknowledge it.
Cleared for takeoff runway 12 right Beechcraft Alpha Sierra, X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo.
Before taking off, you can do two things, right? So what you can do is to make sure that you're, let's say, having a little bit more lift, you can drop the flaps. So you can put them one or two knobs, depending on what you want. So let me show it. So you can see, you can do it either using the mouse, or you can do it using your keyboard. So I'll do it like this. We'll remove the parking brake and we'll increase throttle. If for some reason your aircraft doesn't have enough speed, and believe me, this is also what I learned, is then take a look at these two, let's say, buttons or propeller controllers. Because in most cases what you will see is that you didn't set them correctly to high usage. Of course, this was not the best takeoff ever, because I was trying to explain something. But if those are set too low, then the RPMs of the engine are too low, and that will result in that you can't make enough speed, and it will result that you can't take off, will end up in the bush, etc. One thing I need to warn you about is that if you set them to full, and if you also do full throttle as we're just doing, you can see that the ITT switches on. So let me show you. So here's the IT, and the IT is simply the temperature in the engine. So if you're flying too much on max speed, it will result in that the temperature will be too hot. And as you can imagine, that's not good for the engine. So try to reduce your speed to prevent that your engine is overheating. So we're gonna contact departure.
Going to 124.2 Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo. Departure Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-ray Golf Sierra Kilo is climbing through 800 feet for 7,000 feet.
Beechcraft Alpha Sierra, X-ray Golf Sierra Kilo departure continue as planned. Altimeter 29.905.
And this is next important information.
Sierra Kilo, you are 2 miles southeast. Maintain present heading and altitude. Expect 4 DME 1 runway 12 right approach by Charlie Uniform November transition. Cleared to Charlie Uniform November.
We can acknowledge it.
Maintain present heading and altitude. Expect VOR DME 1 runway 12 right approach by a Charlie Uniform November transition. Cleared to Charlie Uniform November Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
So that's because we set the airplane or the flight route back to the airport. So some things have changed now, right? So one of the things which has changed is that we're still climbing, so we're increasing speed, so that's good. So what I'm gonna show you now is how to switch on the autopilot. And the autopilot can be switched on, and then we need to go to the center of the airplane by using this button. And now it's switched on. You can either use the altitude hold mode, but the altitude hold mode, when you press it, it will keep the current altitude. The other option you can use is the flight control mode. And the flight control mode is a little bit the same as the virtual speed mode. However, the virtual speed mode will ensure that you're climbing at a certain speed, or sorry, with I'm explaining it in the incorrect way. So the virtual speed mode will either, let me show it to you, climb with a certain rate. So for example, when we say set to 500, you can see that the values here have now changed to 500 feet per minute. So that's the climbing rate. So if we would increase it, you can see it's now at 900. While the flight control mode tries to keep a certain speed and tries to bring you to the altitude. So if we would switch on to this mode, you can see that it changed to FLC and that it tries to keep a speed of 105 knots. So it's the other thing you can see is that the AP option has now been switched on, which means that the autopilot has now been switched on, which is good. Once you're at the altitude which you want to, which you're instructed to fly to, this option will switch off and it will automatically switch to the altitude hold mode. In that case, make sure that you're setting the maximum speed, because else you might, go too hard, right? So it will go over speed and all kind of side effects. So next button is the heading button, and the heading button simply allows you to fly a certain heading. So currently it's set to the heading of 360, and currently we're flying at a heading of 88. So let's use this button. So to do that, we can use this button, and you can either switch it to the left, or sorry, to the right, of course, or to the left. And once you push the button, you will see that something will happen. And what happens now is that the aircraft will make the change and will now fly this direction. So if you will leave it like this, you'll see once it's at the 15% or 15 degrees, it will stop. And that's also being shown here by the blue icon here. So we're now flying at 15 degrees, so to the north, and we're still climbing. We're almost at 3,000 feet, and let's go to the next mode. But before going to the next mode, what we need to do is we need to set up the flight plan correctly. So we need to use the star route to make our approach. So let's do that. So we're going to close this window for now because we don't need it. We're going to look at the views. It's okay. Engines are still okay. So that's good. For the other option, so the option you can do is you can either use this screen and switch from split to, or from full to split, or you can use the center screen. It really depends on what you want. It has the same options, and you press the FPL button. And the FPL button, as you already guessed, stands for flight plan. So if we press the active flight plan, it shows the active flight plan, but there's not much in the airplane or in the flight plan. As you can see, there's only a destination and let's say origin. So we're done here, and we're gonna continue to do to the procedures map because that's the one we're gonna use. In this case, we were instructed to land on a specific runway, so let's open the box. Again, you can do that by pressing scroll lock, so 12R, so we're going to say okay, the approach, and then we get this option. So you can see that the destination airport has already been populated. However, this one has not been set to the correct option, so we're gonna switch it to for DME 12R1 or 2. In some cases you can navigate depending on the airport, and you also have ILS, right? So you can also use ILS approach. So let's choose ILS approach and then say load and activate. And once you've done that, you will see that this part changes. You can activate it. I'm gonna go back to full, and if we would zoom out here, then we would be able to see where we're flying, but we can also use the VFR map and use the VFR map to make our approach. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna define the flight, or define the route which we're gonna take to land on runway 12R. So to do that, we're gonna switch off the heading mode. So let me go back to the autopilot, and to do that, it's really easy. You simply press, as you already might have guessed, is the nav mode. What you need to be aware of, or need to be careful about, is that in some cases the nav mode doesn't work, like in my case, right? It continues to fly to 15. If that happens, then you need to change the option here to follow GPS. If that's not the case, like in my scenario, then it won't use it. So then it won't use the navigation option. So, since that's the case, I'll leave it for now, and I will look at where we're flying to. So I'm gonna GPS track, and then we're gonna make a full turn because we need to fly a different direction. Let me zoom out a bit. We need to go to the south, so let's say 210 would be good. And now the airplane starts to turn. If you don't want to do it manually, there is also an easier option, and that's to click on the display and then set the CDI source to FMS. And so once done, you can close it again. So what will happen now if we would switch to the nav mode? You will see that it still continues to make the turn, and it will ensure that we're, I would say, following the flight route which we defined here. So let's do that. If you didn't see it already, here are the options, or let's say the information provided by the navigation system, so by the flight plan. So in the meantime,
Descend and maintain 3,000
we
feet.
need to
Beechcraft
reduce
Golf Sierra
speed
Kilo.
or reduce altitude. So and that's also being done by using the L button, using the L2 button, right? So I'm gonna reduce speed to, what was it, 3,000 feet. Oh, too far. And one observation from you might be, hey, the airplane doesn't follow my instructions. In that case, you can switch the flight command mode off and switch it on. But in most cases that won't work, so what I tend to do is I will use the virtual speed mode to descend. So I'm gonna descend with 500 feet per minute. Be a little bit careful when adjusting the values, because it can go or can make your fly or your airplane go ping-ponging.
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo, please expedite your descent to 3,000 feet.
Yes, we're descending. And in the meantime, we're gonna pull back the throttle a bit. And cancel here. And we're almost at the pink line, right? So by setting the option to the navigation system to nav, and by switching the CDI source to FMS, that's all the things we needed to do to make sure that we're following the pink line. So what are the other options? As already mentioned, this button is to set the speed, and there's also the button here which allows you to
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo, please expedite your descent to 3,000 feet.
to set the VNAV mode. And the VNAV mode is being used in case if you define a flight plan, you can also configure certain altitudes which you need to reach when you're, I would say, reaching the waypoint. In that case, you can switch on the VNAV mode, and the VNAV mode will use the navigation, but will also make sure that you're climbing or descending to the correct altitude. I've seen some issues with it in Flight Simulator, so I'm not sure if it works correctly, and to be honest, I'm not using it a lot during my flights. Then we've got the course button, so we can adjust the course. We're not gonna use it during this flight, so you can use it to recenter the CDI, or adjust the course left and right. If you press this button, it will center on the CDI, which is currently configured. Now we've got the turn half bank mode on, and that's the banking mode of the airplane. The information I found on the internet, it's only used in you're only allowed to use it in certain circumstances, and it will make, I would say, steeper turns. So it's not really nice for the passengers, but sometimes you might want to switch it on. Then we've got the approach button, and we're gonna use it, I would say, in the very near future when making the approach. But first we need to find out why our airplane is not following the VNAV, and that's because we for some reason switched off the mode. So sometimes you need to keep a look at the autopilot. In some cases it switches things off automatically. So make sure that you're always paying attention to what you're doing, or what the autopilot is doing, I should say. Then yaw damper, that's to prevent the airplane and say
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo descend and maintain 2,000 feet.
going or making too, I would say, how do you say it? Yeah, not too much noise, but too, I would say, giving an unstable view, right? So if you're flying, it will go up and down, and
Sierra Kilo, did you copy?
it will make weird movements.
Descend and maintain
And by
2,000
switching on the
feet,
yaw
Beechcraft
damper, you're
Golf Sierra
reducing
Kilo.
that, so people don't get sick. So you can switch it on if you want. And that's also removes one of the other alerts which is visible normally here, right? So if you would switch it off, then you will see the alert. You can switch it on if you want. Now we've got a CPL button, but currently it's not in use in Flight Simulator, so you don't need to use it. So you can leave it off for now. So currently we're descending to 7,000 feet. We're making the turns, which we need to do. And the airplane flies almost automatically, right? So you always need to keep an eye on it, because in some cases it makes weird moves, which you need to correct yourself. So we're at the next waypoint, so we're gonna fly to the left side to USR, and then it will make a turn here. Wondering what's it gonna do here, but let's see. Let's leave the airplane do the stuff. What you can do if you want, if you are wanting to use the ILS, you can request the ILS approach. That's officially, you need to ask that, else the flight control will assume that you're using 4 DME. So we're gonna say, okay, hey, we want to use it was right, and that was ILS 1. And say, okay, hey, this is something we want to do, and then we're gonna request the approach.
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo would like ILS 1 runway 12 right approach vectors to final.
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo, you are 3 miles west. Maintain present heading and altitude. Expect vectors ILS 1 runway 12 right approach.
Now we're gonna acknowledge.
Maintain present heading and altitude. Expect vectors ILS 1 runway 12 right approach Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
You can see some other airplanes flying around. And what we're gonna do, because we're using ILS, we're gonna use the approach button, which is located here, to make the landing, right? So currently we need to look at this piece. We're still going okay. So you can look at the nav radios, so you can switch them on or not, and it will display a certain sound, so it's probably not what we want to do. So everything goes okay, we're making a smooth approach. View is still enough. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna reduce speed a bit. Because we're not almost there, but we're making progress. So you could easily use these systems to even fly automatically without looking outside of the window, but yeah. In most cases that's not what you want to do, right? You sometimes want to look outside of the window to see, okay, hey, what's the airplane doing, where am I, etc. It's a little bit mixing VFR and IFR. So what are other things we can discuss about the autopilot? Well, I think we discussed pretty much everything, so that's good. So you can see the airplane's still following its tracks. Need to watch out here, right? Because another airplane is approaching. You see this button a bit. And another thing is that we forgot to say pull up the gears. So let's see. Oh. What the airplane does. Probably it will fly to FD12R and then we'll make a right turn. Some nice buttons here. None of them are working. Maybe in a future version they will fix it. We'll first make the left turn to CI12R, and then we'll probably make complete 360, and then it will fly back. So I'll let the autopilot do its work, and everything should go okay in normal cases. So what are we? We're currently doing a few. Still is good. DC is also good. So it will take us, I would say, a few seconds or a few minutes to arrive. It's 1.4 from FI12R. So I'm trying to figure out what the airplane is trying to do, what the autopilot is trying to do. So here's the another airplane flying pretty close. Let's see if we can figure it out here. So we'll probably make the turn here and then fly back. And then we can fly into Cancun. So sit back and relax. let's see what the autopilot decides to do. The thing we can double check is okay. This option is still switched on, as you can see. And this is maybe the moment where we need to take some corrective actions. Yeah. So what we're gonna do now is, normally you shouldn't need to do this because it will follow the plan, but for some reason, oh, here it goes. It was a little bit too fast to change it, so it will make the change here.
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo, you are 10 miles northwest of Cancun. Climb and maintain 3,000 feet. Contact tower on 118.6.
Climb and maintain 3,000 feet. Tower on 118.6 Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo. Tower Beechcraft Alpha Sierra. X-ray Golf Sierra Kilo 10 miles northwest inbound ILS 1 runway 12 right approach.
Beechcraft Alpha Sierra, X-ray Golf Sierra Kilo Tower. Cleared ILS 1 runway 12 right approach. Altimeter tree 0.00, wind 09 or 120.
So we're gonna acknowledge it.
Cleared ILS 1 runway 12 right approach Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
Tower Delta 644 is going missed.
So there was one aircraft in
Delta
front of it,
644, contact Cancun approach on 124.7.
which missed the approach, or missed the landing.
Going to 124.7.
Now what you see here is that ILS is being activated, right? So ILS is going active. So we're gonna press the approach button. And the approach button will normally... it was a little bit too fast, so let's use the nav mode for now. So what you will see is that once it's captured the ILS signal, it will go down and down, so and at the end it will be somewhere in the center. That's where you are on, I would say, the correct altitude. So probably when we're at FD12R we can switch it on. But first we need to go to 3,000 feet. To validate that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at, okay, how far are we from the airport. In most cases you will see that this one goes down pretty fast normally, but let's see when it comes down. Don't want to wait too long, because else you will miss the capturing the ILS signal, and then it will say it will be a nightmare, but you will miss the approach. Just like the airplane in front of us. So here it captured the ILS, right? So you can see it's now changed this view to lock 1. So this is the moment that we're gonna hide this window and select the approach button. So what it will do now is, normally it will try to capture the glide scope and will make the corrective actions where necessary. It will also make sure that it turns the aircraft in the correct direction. It does it very slowly, so we're gonna reduce speed a bit. Normally it should capture the signal or the glide scope, but in this case it didn't capture it. Whoa. And the reason I'm saying it didn't capture it is because it keeps saying here the altitude. Normally what will happen if you capture the glide scope, it will change this one also to the glide scope. So what we can do is, let me see where we are with the airplane. You can see it. I think we need to call this a missed one. Yes, because here's already, you can see that the runway is here. So in that case it's better to, I would say, call it a missed approach and try again. So we're gonna declare it a missed approach.
Tower Beechcraft Alpha Sierra, X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo is going missed.
Again, switch off approach.
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo contact departure on 124.2.
And then we're gonna acknowledge handoff.
Going to 124.2 Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
So I'm gonna call it a missed approach.
Departure Beechcraft Alpha Sierra, X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo is missed approach at Cancun.
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo, you are 2 miles west. Climb and maintain 4,000 feet. Expect vectors ILS 1 runway 12 right approach.
So I'm gonna acknowledge it.
Climb and maintain 4,000 feet. Expect vectors ILS 1 runway 12 right approach Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
Gonna switch the vertical speed on. And climb. And then we're gonna look at the waypoints. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna reuse the same waypoints, I would say. So we're gonna go to the split screen. I'm gonna activate it. 12R, it's fine. I'm gonna say remove and then re-edit. Activate the approach. Switch to full mode. And then switch on the nav button here. And that will make sure that we're making the, I would say, correct turns again. And let's see if we can make it a little bit more successful this time. I'm not sure what's going wrong here, but maybe we should make some corrective actions, because in some cases the ILS approach is at 2,000 feet or something. If you're too high initially, then it won't capture the glide scope anymore, and then you're screwed, like we were. So let's wait for the airplane to make its turn. And then we'll go on mute and we'll sit back and relax until we're at the point where we can, I'll say, activate the approach button again. already probably know what I forgot. I forgot to set it back to FMS. So make sure that if it's set to VOR 1 or VOR 2, you're changing it again to FMS, because else it won't use it. So we're gonna turn the airplane. I will go on mute unless something goes wrong. As you can see, the airplane starts to making the weird turns again. So we're almost back at the original position. So let's give it some minutes before it reaches that, and then hopefully when it's let's say back at the starting point, we can capture the glide scope and make the landing using ILS. If for some reason it fails, we will need to take over control from the autopilot and we'll land the airplane manually. But it's always nice to use ILS, so stay tuned, I would say. So we can see the runway already there, right? So the lights, it's pretty dense at the airport, as you can see. So a lot of other airplanes. So currently the autopilot is trying to capture, to fly back to the waypoint CI12R, I think, or the D305 India. And that should line us up for the runway. In the meantime, we can look at the glide scope here, but it's not yet, I would say, activated yet. So let's see if it comes down. I'm gonna reduce speed a bit. Gonna drop the gear. That's something you shouldn't forget. So let's see if ILS comes down. This one. Normally when it starts to come down, you will see it goes down pretty fast. So 12, that's this one. So it's captured it now, as you can see. So let's try to activate the approach button. And if it doesn't do it like it currently does, then it simply means that you didn't capture the glide scope. So let's do it a little bit differently. Let's switch off the autopilot and let's do it manually. So let's make the corrective action here. See, it's already, we're going far too high, far too high. Probably we should have been at 2,000 feet or something. Don't do this in real life, right? Because normally I can't imagine that this is say a normal approach, but I don't want to extend the video longer by, I would say, making another missed approach.
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo, you are 2,900 feet below your assigned altitude.
As you can see, aircraft or air traffic control is also not happy with us. So we're gonna ignore
Climb and
air
maintain
traffic control
4,000
for now.
feet. Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
Normally you shouldn't do this. And that sometimes is the issue, right? Sometimes it doesn't capture the signals correctly, and then it will end up. Then you will end up in scenarios like this, and you sometimes have to try 2 or 3 times before it really helps you, I would say, capturing the correct information. So we're almost there. So soft touchdown. Hopefully. Yes. So we made the touchdown. That's cool. So here's also where the how-to ends. So we discussed the multiple options for the autopilot. Unfortunately, we didn't use the ILS functionality as I would like to use. But have a look at one of my other videos where I show how the ILS works. Probably we're gonna redo this in the future for this specific airplane. Hope you like this video. If you like it, then consider to press the like button. If you've got questions or comments, then use the comments box under this video. If you want to see more of these videos, then consider to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.